Welcome, everyone, to another edition of The Travel Show with your host, Ted Blank of Ted Blank Luxury Travel and Adventure. And as we do every Thursday, we love chatting it up about wonderful travel experiences for people. And I got to tell you, just when I think we've talked about everything travel related, you come up with something new and exciting.
We find something new and exciting. Yeah.
Well, this one really looks fun. But before we get into that, how are things in the travel world?
Things are good. You know, it's always an interesting year when you have an election going on.
Does that matter to you in the travel world?
Some people think it does. Some people think it makes a big difference.
Like what?
People aren't as interested in traveling because they're so fascinated by the election, which is hard to believe, but perhaps it's true.
And maybe some people would like to travel because of the election.
Could be true, too. Yes, could be very true.
Well, that's fascinating. What have you found?
I don't see that it has much of an impact. I think there are some strange economic things happening. I think that's concerning to some people. Mm-hmm. And so I think, you know, people have pulled back a little bit from spending. And certainly, as we came out of COVID, everybody hadn't traveled in a long time, and so they kind of would compress 3 or 4 years of travel into 1 year. And I think now we're back to a little more normal cycle of travel for a lot of folks.
Well, I agree with you about the economy, and certainly travel is a luxury for most people. And so I don't think that the economy is quite back to where we are told it is, or we would like to believe it is, at least for everybody.
No, absolutely. That's absolutely true. I think the good news is that for folks who are retired, you know, the stock market is still doing well. Mm-hmm. It's had a few hiccups, and so, you know, they can definitely plan with confidence.
And is that a big factor in people's travels, is the stock market?
Well, you know, I think everybody, no matter how successful you've been in life, you know, you always have that little niggling thing in the back of your head that says, oh, do I have enough money to make a comfortable retirement? And it's so funny because I had a financial planner tell me today that you're doing a great job of keeping my clients' accounts from getting too big. So I thought that was a high praise indeed.
That's a funny way of putting it.
It is.
Congratulations, Ted Blake.
Happy to be of service.
Yes. So what are we going to talk about today, please?
Well, I thought we would talk about a cruise that I've had some folks book, and it strikes me as a really neat opportunity that I don't think a lot of people even realize that they could do.
Oh, do tell.
Yeah, and I think, you know, maybe this would appeal to a couple different types of people. It might appeal to people who are just adventurous, looking to go somewhere they haven't been. It might appeal to folks who have already been to Alaska and liked it and want to go someplace similar. And I think it's also a fantastic cruise for families who want a little bit of everything. And so this cruise starts in Iceland, it goes to Norway, and then you actually get to hit continental Europe, Holland and Belgium, before it ends in England. And so you get Iceland, Norway, outdoor adventures, and then some European culture mixed in. And so I think it's a great option for folks who are, you know, intrigued, maybe fall into one of those three categories.
Well, and as you have said before, if you're going to make the time investment of flying to Europe, you may as well stay as long as you can and really get as much done.
Absolutely.
You're really packing a lot into this trip, but it looks like it's at a good pace.
Yeah, it's at a nice pace, and it's only a 10-day cruise. And so if you spent a little time before the cruise in Iceland, a little time afterwards in England, 2 weeks, you could actually cover a lot of territory. And you see a real diverse chunk of the world in this. So it's kind of got something for everyone.
So who put this together, please?
Yeah, so this is a cruise on a cruise line called Norwegian Cruise Line, and we probably haven't talked too much about them. They're one of the cruise lines that you see advertised on TV. They're a big ship, kind of a mass market cruise ship. And so this particular ship, it's a very new ship. It was built only 2 years ago. It's called the Norwegian Prima. And it carries about 3,100 passengers. So it's a little smaller than some of the big ships out there, but it's got all the amenities of a big cruise ship. And we're going to talk about kind of a little bit of an expert tip on how to make the most of that big ship experience while not having to deal with some of the side effects, you know, crowds and lines and things like that. But it's a beautiful ship. It's got some great restaurants, incredible entertainment, lots of neat things for families. So it's a perfect trip if you're looking to take your kids, if you're looking to do kind of a multi-generational family trip. This is a perfect itinerary on a great cruise.
Well, let's get into it, please.
Yeah, so this cruise, it actually runs in both directions. And as I said, it's a 10-day cruise. It operates in July and August of 2025. And it either starts in Reykjavik, Iceland, and ends in Southampton, England, or vice versa. And Southampton is the port for London. So if we go from north to south and go in that direction, One of the nice things about Iceland is it's not that long of a flight away. It's only about a 4.5, 5-hour flight from Minneapolis.
It is?
It is, yep, and there are nonstop flights every day of the
nothing.
week. Yeah, so it's a lot closer than Hawaii, not much farther than California, but it's a totally different world. And so many people have an interest in going to Iceland.
Yes.
You know, it's got volcanoes, and it's got mountains, and it's got just beautiful, beautiful scenery, and it's very, very remote. And in some ways, it reminds you a little bit of Alaska, because you can do some of the same things in Iceland that you can do in Alaska. You can go for hikes up the mountains. You can see the beautiful glaciers on top of the mountains. You can see the volcanoes. You can go kayaking. And so the cruise starts out with 3 different port calls in Iceland. So you'll spend about 4 days exploring Iceland. And then you head south across the Atlantic Ocean to Norway. And you'll visit 3 cities that are right in the heart of fjord country in Norway. So if you could probably pick the 3 best cities to visit, this cruise has done that. And the real highlight is a day that you spend in a fjord called the Geiranger Fjord. And it's one of the most beautiful fjords in the world. If you're ever on the internet or you see a picture in a brochure or a magazine of a beautiful Norwegian fjord with a cruise ship anchored in the middle of it, chances are it's Geiranger Fjord. And the Norwegians have restricted the number of cruise ships that are allowed to enter this area. And they've restricted also the type of ship that can go. So the only ships that are able to go are ships that meet very, very stringent environmental standards.
Is that to protect this fjord?
It's to protect this fjord from pollution, to limit greenhouse gases, essentially, in this area. And so this is one of the few ships that can actually go into the fjord and call there and visit there. So that's a real highlight. 10, 15 years ago, every cruise ship could go there. Now it's a very, very select number of ships that can go there. So you'll have 3 ports in Norway, beautiful scenery. I mean, incredible. You know, the glaciers at the top of the mountains.
You might even see northern lights.
You could see the northern lights. Probably not, because it's going to be a little bit bright.
Oh.
The sun will be out pretty late, but you could potentially see the northern lights. But you can get that just scenic side of Norway. And again, so many outdoor activities you can partake in. And if you don't want to do that, there are nice little towns that have shops and restaurants and churches that you can walk around and explore as well. And then the cruise kind of totally changes gear, and you head south to mainland Europe. And the cruise will stop in Amsterdam, which is the capital of the Netherlands, a very culturally rich city. You can take those famous canal cruises through the canals and the glass-topped boats. You can visit the Anne Frank House and Museum, a very interesting and sobering site. Some incredible art museums there. If you're into art, the Van Gogh Museum there is amazing. And what a contrast. You know, 2 days before you were exploring the fjords of Norway, and now you're in a cultural capital of the world. And so a day in Amsterdam, and then a day in the city of Bruges on the coast of Belgium. And Bruges is one of the most beautiful little Belgian towns. Very picturesque. It has a lot of little canals going through it. They make chocolate in Bruges. And believe it or not, French fries are actually from Belgium.
Did not know that.
And so, yeah, I don't know how they got named French fries, but the Belgians probably aren't too happy about that. Set their tourism efforts back by a century. And so you can explore this beautiful little town. You could also head a little further afield to Brussels, the capital of Belgium, which is another major world capital with interesting architecture and cultural sites. It's also the headquarters of the European Union, so a lot of, European Parliament buildings and things like that.
When you say you could head there, you would help us set those up, or is that part of the trips?
Yeah, so the cruise line will offer a variety of excursions. One of them would be a trip to Brussels that you could take. Yep. And then the cruise will end in Southampton, England. And Southampton is the port for London. So great opportunity to spend a couple days exploring London in the summer when it doesn't rain as often as it does the rest of the year in England. And oh my gosh, I mean, so much to see and do in London. We couldn't even begin to describe it. Or if you're done and you run out of time, it's 90 minutes to Heathrow Airport and an easy flight back home to Minneapolis.
Or if you want to stay longer, you could help us put together a package like that, I bet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So 10 days, you're going to get really a diverse overview of Europe. You're going to spend some quality time in Iceland, get that neat Scandinavian experience in Norway. So I think it's a really neat itinerary. There aren't a lot of cruise lines that do this. So this is a nicely organized, nicely designed itinerary on a great ship.
So when you
say a great ship for this destination.
It's just those 2 months. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, this is a very seasonal destination. You wouldn't want to go to Iceland in October. Be cold and windy and rainy. And so this is a summer trip. Just like Alaska is a seasonal destination, this is a very seasonal destination.
Okay. Wow, fascinating.
Yeah.
So something like this, we would want to book when?
Yeah, so this cruise has been on sale for probably 2 years now. So we're actually starting to get into kind of the last wave of selling for this. And I would think that by probably January 30th, these cruises will be sold out. And so this is a really good time to be booking. You'll have a wider choice of accommodations. And I talked a little bit about a kind of an insider tip on how to make the most of this big cruise ship without having to deal with the crowds and some of the things that can sometimes come along with that. And Norwegian has a ship within a ship that they call the Haven. And the Haven is an area of staterooms and suites. They accommodate about 250 passengers
Of the
3,000 passengers in this area. And you have your own private sun deck and pool and hot tub. You have your own private dining room. You have your own private lounge. And you have priority access to all the amenities on the ship. So reservations for the other restaurants on board, reservations for shore excursions, reservations for the shows on board the ship, getting on and getting off when there are tenders being used. You have priority. And so it really helps you avoid some of the, the rough edges that can come along with a bigger ship, but you can still enjoy all the great facilities on board this ship. And Norwegian does a lot that I think folks would really enjoy. They've been very innovative with their dining options on board the ships. So not only do they have the restaurants that we're used to on cruise ships, the buffet that folks might be used to, they actually have a food hall full of different sort of ethnic restaurants and a variety of different food styles that you can try. And that's different than the buffet, so it's a different experience. They have a bar and a lounge where if you just kind of want to sit back and watch TV and have a hamburger or a Reuben or something like that, they've got that. And then they've also got some really nice specialty restaurants, steakhouse, seafood restaurant, things like that. But the folks in the Haven have their own restaurant as well. And so that's a really neat opportunity. And the other piece of the Haven that, well, maybe I should say there are two other pieces of that I think make it really, really special. The first one is that you actually have a concierge who is based on land who will reach out to you about a month before the cruise, and they'll walk you through all the different things that are going on board the ship. They'll help you make reservations for them so that when you get on the ship, all those worries have been taken care of. Wow. And so you'll have seats at the show, you'll have dining reservations, shore excursion reservations, whatever you want. The other thing is that the staterooms in the Haven come in a wide variety of sizes. And so I think especially for families, when they look at taking cruises and they look at sort of a regular cruise ship stateroom, you put 4 people in there, it's pretty cozy. I mean, 4 people, 1 bathroom, pretty tiny. And so the Haven has a lot of 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom suites and villas where you have separate living spaces for a larger extended family, but you're not all packed into one little small cabin sharing the same
I can't
bathroom.
even picture what this would look like.
Yeah, so they're really incredible staterooms, and you're going to put a link on Facebook that'll have some information on it, and folks can kind of see some pictures on there. But you really have a lot of space that you can spread out and enjoy, and especially for a large family, that can really make the difference between great vacation or, oh my God, the kids were fighting the whole time, and we never want to leave home
for sure
again. And so I think, when folks are thinking about going to Europe, thinking about a trip like this, that's something to consider. And it really will make the difference, and it will really make this an incredible and a special vacation. And so my staff and I know a lot about the Haven and can help explain to folks all the things that make that a great value when you're looking at a cruise like this.
Well, I'm looking at some of the pictures online, and these rooms are huge and beautiful.
They're huge and beautiful.
And like you said, let's say you're taking your mother and she's a widow and she might be older. You don't want to put her in her own room and
make her share a room with the 12 and 13-year-old.
No.
That's not going to go well.
No, but
and
how
so,
fun to have you can be together but still have your own separate room.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things that it's interesting. There's a blog out there called The Points Guy, and maybe folks have heard of him. He blogs about different travel-related things, and he recently did a story about cruising with Norwegian in Europe and talked about how it's such a great experience and such a great value for families. And I really think that this cruise, great itinerary, and it's great for families. And so I think there might be other cruises out there that would be great for someone like you or I, grown-ups, and we've talked about about some of those, but this is a neat family itinerary. And what a special list of places you'd have a chance to go to. I mean, this is the kind of places your family is going to have memories of for life.
For sure. And think about in this area, all the Scandinavian descent folks.
Yeah.
This would be so perfect
Yeah.
for them to
Yeah.
retrace some of their...
Kind of go to the ancestral homeland. Yeah, absolutely.
And like you said, such a vast difference of geography, topography. I mean...
Yeah, one day you're kayaking, the next day you're in an art museum.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of cool.
It really
and
is.
I think especially for families with kids, that's important, because if you made
Shake
the
it
kids
up.
go to an art museum every day, they might not
For sure.
enjoy it. And if you went kayaking every day, they probably wouldn't learn anything. So it's a
Right.
chance to really mix it up a little bit.
So if you did this, would you start or end in England?
You could do it really either way.
What would
I
you
think
do?
I would probably start in England.
Okay.
Because I do think spending a little bit of time in London is really absolutely worth it.
And you want to be fresh.
And you want to be fresh, I think, because London is a big city and there's a lot to see
Okay.
and do. And, you'll use a lot of energy up getting around.
Good
And then you kind of
advice.
get on your cruise and relax and enjoy. And then, Reykjavik is actually a pretty small city. I mean, I think the whole population of Iceland is about 300,000 and 150,000 live in Reykjavik, but it's a pretty small city. And so easy to get around, interesting things to see, but most of Iceland is in the countryside and when you
Sure.
get away from the capital. And so when you stop and the ship calls at some of the ports there, you'll have a chance to see that. And then it's a very quick flight home.
Oh.
So very nice. So
Ted.
I would probably do it in that way, but you could do it either way.
Oh, Ted. But see, these are things that you can help us with your expertise. And that's why it really does pay to work with a travel professional.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so we do also have some bonuses for folks who book this with our agency. So you can click on the link in Facebook and actually request a quote that way. Or you can give me a call at 651-964-8245 or go to tedblanktravel.com and fill out our little information form and we'll send you all the details and sit down and chat with you and make sure this is the right cruise for you and get it booked.
Love it. Ted, so good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, this is more for us to think about. And again, this is called what?
This is a Norwegian Fjords cruise with Norwegian Cruise Line.
This show is called The Travel Show, and your host is Ted Blank of Ted Blank Luxury Travel and Adventure.